Christy here with you today for Sunny Studio Stamps. Today I'm going to be making a card combining several Sunny Studio stamp sets, including Surfing Santa, Tropical Scenes, North Pole, and Fabulous Flamingos. So I stamped out all of the images I'll be coloring with some Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink on Neenah Solar White cardstock, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. So I'm starting with Santa's skin, and I'm doing a pretty light skin tone because he's been up at the North Pole for all these past few months preparing for Christmas, so he doesn't have a tan yet. So I'm using E000, E00, and E11. I used that E11 to lay a little bit of shadow up under his hat and on the inside of his arms and at his wrists and under his shorts and the backs of his legs, and then blended that out with the E00 and finished with the E000. And I left his belly plain at first because I thought it might be cool to give him like a little white sleeveless tank top. But in the end, I chickened out on that. I was going to try to do like ribbing on it, and I just chickened out. So I decided to use the same skin tones to color his belly, just using that darkest shade up under his beard and blending toward the bottom. I used R20 to give him some rosy cheeks because Santa's always jolly, and I gave him a red nose as well since he's been out in the sun here for a little bit now. The red combo that I'm using is R24, R29, and R39. So I'm beginning with that R39 and putting a shadow up on his hat under the part where it's kind of dangling down to the side, and also right above the hat brim, and then bringing that up a little bit on the left-hand side, and then blending that out with the R29 and filling in with the R24. And then I'm going to continue coloring some of the accessories. I'm going to do one of the stripes on his surfboard with that red combo, and also the bow on the Christmas gift. So if you ever wondered what Santa does on Christmas Day after he has delivered all his gifts the night before and come back to the North Pole with an empty sack and tired and hungry reindeer, this is what he does. He sets off on a tropical beach vacation, and Mrs. Claus makes sure that he is all set to go. She has baked him some cookies and sent him off with a little gift for him to open later, because if there's anybody who gets overlooked on Christmas as far as the gift giving, it would be Santa himself, because he's always delivering the gifts. So she snuck a little present into his bag that he can open later, and she even made sure that he ended up with a pineapple, because we all know Santa has a sweet tooth, but eating only cookies isn't good for you, so he had to have a little bit of fruit to balance out the cookies that he's having for his snack later on. So I'm moving on to my little swim shorts for Santa. Of course, they had to be in a nice Christmas green, so I'm using G43, G46, and G29. The G29 is my darkest there. I just did a little outline to add some contrast, and then blended with the G46 and filled in with the G43. I'm also going to do my palm tree leaves with these shades, and for these I'm just using that G29 up on the top edge of each of those leaves, and I didn't bring it all the way to the tip because they get so narrow there and I didn't want it to get really dark. So I just kind of stopped maybe just a little bit short of the end. And then I'm going to use the G46, and this time I will take that all the way to the end. I'm mainly coloring the top half of the leaf where that line is drawn, and let a little bit of that G46 go down into the bottom half, and then I'm going to fill in the rest with that G43. And that really adds a lot of brightness and lightness to it. I just really have fallen in love with this combination. I just started using these three markers together pretty recently, and all during this Christmas card series, I believe, and I'm really happy with the way that they play together. I thought about mixing it up and doing some different greens for the pineapple top and the extra leaf, but it just seemed like the right shade of green to use, so I decided to continue going with it. So I'm going to do the pineapple top like I mentioned. I just put the darkness at the bottom of each of those leaves and blended toward the top with the lightest. And then for this single leaf, I'm doing the darkness in the center to kind of make it look like it's a little bit creased there and maybe bowed out on the sides of the leaf, and then blended out with the G46 and filled in with the G43. And the last thing I'm going to color with this combo is the stripe on the far side of the surfboard. We all know how much Santa loves speed. He loves racing through the sky in his sleigh, and he loves racing through the sea on his custom Christmas surfboard. For my palm tree trunks, I'm going to use E44, E47, and E49. So I'll do a little line at the bottom of each section and then also up the right hand side to just create even more depth on each of those little places. And then I will grab the E47 and just go in that same pattern, kind of a backwards L shape. Just going right over the edge of that E49 and softening that up, but still leaving the majority of that space for that E44. So I'm going to go in quickly and fill in all of the remaining white space, and then I'll do the second palm tree off screen. For the island, I'm going to use E50, E51, E53, and E55s for a nice sandy tone. And you may notice over on the right hand side that I have a little bit of weird kind of grayish marks there. And that is just because I cleaned these images right before I stamped them, just so that they would take the ink a little bit better. And it was still a little bit wet over on that side, so I had a little bit of ink smearing, but I knew that this island was going to get cut off on that right hand side, so I decided not to restamp it. I'm just going to go with it since the left side and the majority of it was just fine. So I used that E55 to outline the image and kind of create a little bit of depth on the outer banks of the little island. And then I'm blending that out with the E53, and then I'll bring in the E51, and then I brought in the E50 so I could have a nice and light center. And then I'm also going to use the lightest 3 shades for the cookies. The one on the right hand side is in the most shadow, so I just use the E53 and the E51, but I use the E50 for the other 2 as well. And then for the pineapple, I'm going to use Y21, Y26, and Y28. I'm just following the lines that the artist has drawn there with that Y28 first, and then I'm going to go over that with the Y26. The Y28 is kind of dull, but it does add just a bit more of a brown tone that I thought looked a little bit more realistic. And then that Y26 really brightens things up, and then I use the Y21 as the highlight. I wanted a little pop of blue on there that would tie in to the ocean that will be on the card later. So I used BG45 and BG49 to color in the cookie plate. And then I'm bringing in W00, W1, and W3 for all of the white objects. So I'm going to add a little of the W3 to either end of the white stripe on the surfboard, and then soften that with the W1, and then fill in with the W00 and just let that fade into white in the center. I'm going to do the same thing on the white of Santa's hat. Again, just adding that darkness on either side and pulling toward the center so that it looks like a rounded object. This time I also added a little bit of darkness to the bottom edge so that the fabric would look like it's rolled over. And then I also want to make sure to do the little pom-pom on his hat. I wanted the gift to be white as well, but I skipped the W3 this time and just used the W1 and the W00. And I'm going to do that with Santa's beard as well, just to kind of separate it a bit from the hat. Just added a few little flicks of that W1 and then blending that out with the W00 and letting it fade into the white. And then I'll trim these images out with their matching dies. I'm going to use one of the sentiments from the North Pole stamp set, and I'm stamping that onto a piece of MFT's Snow Cone cardstock using Lawn Fawn's Lobster ink, and I'm using the one that says Spreading Christmas Cheer. I used the same cardstock and ink to stamp on the inside of my card, and I'm using the Santa and his surfboard and the sentiment that comes with Surfing Santa, which is Warm Christmas Wishes. I've used the Sunny Studio Slimline Nature borders to cut out 3 waves, and they are from bottom to top Lawn Fawn's Mermaid, MFT's Blue Raspberry, and Lawn Fawn's Blue Jay cardstocks. So I'm going to start with the bottom one, which is the Mermaid, and I'm going to glue that down to the Blue Raspberry piece. Those 2 panels I'm going to use as one and pop them up on the card base, just so I have a little bit of dimension on the card. And then the Blue Jay one, I'm going to adhere flat to the card. So I'm kind of using those first 2 as a placeholder to get the positioning correct for that darker one. And then I will add some foam tape to the back of this. I had just a tiny piece of cardstock hanging over from the Blue Raspberry, so I used my Cutter Bee scissors to trim that off. And now I am lining these 2 waves up with the bottom of the card front and pressing them into place. And now I can begin to add my images. I'm going to start with the island, since that is the biggest image and kind of the center point of the card. So I'm going to tuck that in behind the Blue Raspberry wave and just get that positioned just where I want it. And you can see how I'm letting that kind of hang over the right hand side. Once the glue dries a little bit, I'm going to trim off any of the excess. So then I'm going to take my palm trees and get those in position. I'm going to tip them just a little bit to the left and right so that they don't look quite so identical. They will look just a little bit more unique because they are growing in a different direction slightly. And just like our gifts get placed under the Christmas tree, I thought it would be fun to have Santa's little goodies under his 2 Christmas palm trees. So I started with the pineapple, and I thought it would be kind of fun to lay it on its side just for something different. And then I have this single leaf, and I'm going to put that going to the right to kind of balance out the green over on the left. I'll give that a little twist so it's not so straight. And then I'm going to add the little gift in front of those, kind of overlapping the crease between them. And then I've got my little plate of cookies, and I will put that overlapping the gift and the pineapple. So then we've got Santa and his little surfboard, and I wanted that to be popped up on foam tape as well so that it's more in the forefront and really draws your eye, and also it's kind of gives it a little bit more movement to the card to have a bit more depth. I also put foam tape on the back of Santa except for on his feet, since those are overlapping the surfboard. So I'm going to get him positioned just right so he can be catching a wave and adhere him down to the card. Now I'll trim off the little bit of the island that was hanging over, and then I'm going to take my sentiment and I'm just going to trim down this little strip to a size that I like, and then I'm going to give it a fishtail end by cutting up the center and then bringing the 2 ends to meet that little cut in the center, so it's really quick and easy. And I'm sorry that I went a little bit out of frame there for part of that, but I'm sure you guys have seen people do this 100 times. So I just add a little bit of liquid glue to the back of that and adhere that down at the bottom of my scene. And I felt like that top left corner was a little bare, so I die cut one of the Sunny Studio fluffy clouds, and I'm going to adhere that right up there. Kind of balances everything out. And then of course I had to add a little bit of Stardust Stickles. So I didn't want to go too crazy since Santa is definitely a boy, but he also brings the magic, so he has to have some glitter. So I added it to the white of his hat and the skateboard, and also to his board shorts, the pineapple, the gift bow, and the edge of the cookie plate. So I'll lift that up to the camera so you can see how that sparkles and shines, and give you another peek at the inside. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, please be sure to give the video a like and subscribe to the Sunny Studio YouTube channel. And if you're interested in any of the products that I used today, you'll find those listed and linked below the video. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.